We have multiple major Toronto Raptors draft updates to discuss, as after all the combines, after all the workouts, the interviews that have gone down already leading into the draft, there are some new developments and players that are available at that Raptors draft range. Of course, Khaman Maluach is a player all eyes Raptors fans have had on in terms of fitting into this new looked Raptors team, but there are new names that the Raptors fans should really be investing some time watching the YouTube videos, doing the research, because the Raptors are in the mix for some new players. So we're going to discuss what these new developments are, what we can expect from this Toronto Raptors team entering the NBA draft, and frankly, why I'm very amped up for this year's NBA draft. So lots of stuff to discuss out here in this video. But folks, you guys have been crushing it. The subscribe button. Again, if you are part of the 52% of our viewers that haven't hit the subscribe button just yet, you're tuning into the vids and want to stay up to date with everything going on with this team, make sure you guys hit that sub button so you don't miss a single thing that's going on. But let's jump into it, because of course, we talked about a few different draft guys. We're going to talk about more as we enter close to the draft, but Khaman Maluach is a name that we have seen a ton, thrown out for the Raptors team in terms of a fit, being a 7'2" guy that fits a position of need for this Toronto Raptors squad. He is a piece that a lot of Raptors fans are excited, and we have some new develops on him. But there is one player in Egor Demin. Egor Demin, that's how you pronounce it, as according to a YouTube video before I started this. Let me know if I'm wrong in the comment section down below. But he has been shooting up the draft boards according to scouts at the combine and how people are feeling about his game. So basically, we'll take a look at some new reports. Essentially, the BYU guard Egor Demin is drawing interest from several teams in the lottery, including the Brooklyn Nets, league sources have said. It would be hard for a team like the Nets, who is desperately in need of playmaking guards with size, to pass up on Demin should he be available at the spot. Maluach is another guy that draft prospect drawing a bunch of attention from the Nets. So if you're not familiar with the mocks, the Nets have the pick just immediately above the Toronto Raptors. So the Raptors are selecting 9th overall. Masai Ujiri will be selecting there. And then the Nets are selecting number 8. So wherever players are projected to go to the Nets, they are in that exact draft range for the Toronto Raptors. So, Demin is a new guy that, it's an interesting name to be thrown on there, and is a very, very interesting piece because, he's a guy that's been mocked kind of all over the place, but in terms of his actual profile, he is a 6'10" guard with a 6'10" wingspan that runs point guard, shooting guard out there for BYU. He's from Russia. He's only 19 years old and put up some solid stats out there in college. In 27 minutes per game, came out, gave 6 assists per night, 11 points, 4 rebounds, 1.2 steals, and he's a guy that doesn't have a greatest of 3-point shooting strokes consistency. Did take 5 threes a game, so he's a capable 3-point shooter, but only shooting 27%. But definitely a guy just 19 years old, 6'10", playing that point guard position is a very unique and intriguing prospect. So that is a player I've seen people be all over the map in regards to, hey, do we want to get him? Do we not want to get him? Do we want to be in the mix? Do we not want to be in the mix? There's a lot of contradicting opinions in regards to how good he can be out there as a basketball player and, in terms of that mix. And one of the new mocks has him projected to land to the Toronto Raptors at number 9 overall. So Egor Demin jumping up to the number 9 overall selection in a recent mock draft from NBADraft.net. So that is a guy that we should definitely have our eyes on in terms of as a draft prospect that could land with the Raptors. Again, is it the perfect fit? A 6'9", because a 6'9", 6'10" point guard, those types of players, the same way Scottie Barnes is a point guard, right? They usually end up becoming a wing. And, the way the Toronto Raptors are set up right now with Brandon Ingram in the mix, who needs the ball in his hands a ton, that is that size, that is that position. Scottie Barnes, who, of course, needs the ball in his hands, is a creator, is a point guard himself, at that spot. Bringing in another 6'9", 6'10", point guard that is going to play point guard, is going to play the wing. What are you going to do with him there? That's an interesting thing to do. We know Masai Ujiri's loved the 6'9", 6'10" vision for a long time. Of course, we kind of moved on from that era of Toronto Raptors basketball, but maybe in terms of more polished skills, I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening out there on that front, but we do have multiple more other updates as Maluach also comes off the board in a recent NBA mock draft. As although he could go a lot sooner than the 9th pick. The Duke center makes sense for the Toronto Raptors and Masai Ujiri and the Toronto Raptors. So basically, he's mocked to go to the Toronto Raptors right now, but there's a realistic possibilities off the board before that. In Chicago, Maluach proved that his all-around offensive game is taking form, and he has the potential to extend his game out to the perimeter. At 7'1" with nearly a 7'7" wingspan, Maluach is the best big man in the draft class. His raw potential and length would fit in perfectly off offensive threats that Toronto already has out there on the roster. So Maluach, he is impressing a ton of people with his performance out there in Chicago. Of course, that's where the draft combine is held. And basically, Khaman Maluach is impressed every time he steps on the court in the pre-draft process. Here he is at Clutch Pro Day, where he showed off his rapidly diversifying skill set, tools, and touch in front of the basket, a huge audience of NBA decision makers. So basically, what we're gathering is Khaman Maluach is a guy that a lot of Raptors fans have been like, hey, that's the piece that I'd love to see that's out there in the mix. He has been shooting up He's still mocked to go to the Toronto Raptors, and we do have a mock draft, recent one, latest updated mock draft that has him still going to the Toronto Raptors at 9. Another one that Brett Siegel was referring to out there in his report. So he's still very well can land to the Toronto Raptors at this spot, especially if the Nets do end up going after Egor Demin. So that is one thing to factor in. But, a guy that has that 7'1", 7'2", frame, 7'7" wingspan, that is 18 years old, is a very, very intriguing, interesting prospect that, is there. But frankly, the thing that's concerning in regards to this update is he's impressing everyone with how well he's performing. So even though this gets me more excited about him as a potential prospect for the Raptors coming into the mix, that signals to me that there are more and more teams interested in bringing him in. And that's basically what, this is sort of showing, because the odds of some of the players that, again, what's it called? You have your, of course, top of the NBA draft, your Cooper Flaggs, your Dylan Harpers, your Ace Baileys, these types of players. But, these other guys are creeping up the odds in terms of being able to jump into the mix as a top 5 pick. So, Jeremiah Fairs, Trey Johnson, Egor Demin is jumping in the mix in terms of a potential of jumping into the top 5. So after the top 3, it feels like I've even some people say that Ace Bailey could drop out of the top 3, but beyond the top 3, out of most mock drafts, out of most of the things that have been coming out, it seems like a complete just uncertainty where these players are going to fall. So that's going to lead a lot on Masai Ujiri to have his scouting reports locked in, to be able to take whatever players that make the most sense in terms of their fit, in terms of their ability to join this Toronto Raptors team long term, because we know Masai Ujiri is not going to be doing for positional fit specifically, even though he did mention the need for a backup center, a young backup center out there on the squad. Of course, we do have we have Shamshay out there in the G League developing and things like that there. So it's not desperate need for the Toronto Raptors. But Maluach seems like the player that's exciting a lot of people. But Egor Demin, do not be surprised, even though he's mocked in certain places. I mean, in this mock draft where we have Maluach going to the Toronto Raptors, you see he's not even in the top 12. And I should have took the better screenshot. I believe he's mocked 18th overall in this specific mock draft. So that is something to take a look at. We do have a lot of other players that are out there in the mix, for the Raptors at that number 9 overall selection. We will keep you updated in terms of all of these guys, heading into the NBA draft. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Anyways, you guys are the best to make us far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing now. Cheers.